And so she's going to give us the latest. She's first going to present and then answer questions. So Joan, why don't I hand it over to you next?
Okay, I just want to remind everyone that on your screen with Zoom, you have a chat button. Well, welcome. First of all, I'm happy to see all the names. I just ran through them. So, but use your chat room to ask questions during Heather's presentation. And my job is to pick up some of those questions with Kim's help. And I've also recorded the questions those of you asked when you registered, so that if Heather does not cover them, I can ask them after her presentation. But again, please feel free to use the chat room. I'll be following it, and that's a way to get additional questions or clarification answered after her presentation. So Heather, welcome from me, and we'll do our best to follow the questions and comments and watch your presentation.
Okay. Well, I will just say presentations are the best when you have great facilitators, and I can already tell that, Joan, you're going to keep me straight and keep this going. So thank you very much. Thank you in advance. Thank you for having me. My name's Heather Sederma. I am a nurse practitioner, and when I'm not working on COVID, I am a provider and I work for Healthcare for the Homeless. I've also been a pediatric primary care provider and worked many places with the county. But since COVID has started, been very involved and really a witness to history with this pandemic and the public health response to how do we, first it was testing, then contact tracing and vaccinating, and just lifting up a system to respond to this. And so it has been interesting and humbling and tiring and absolutely an all hands on deck approach. Community childcare, daycare, I've worked, as you know, some of you may have talked when we were with the schools and daycares for the contact tracing and location outbreak. So thank you all, right? We don't do this alone. It really is everybody in the community and the people that who've continued to work, that's made all the difference. And I think we've turned a corner. So this is really hopeful. I hope this is hopeful and interesting. And by all means, ask questions if I'm not answering the questions you need, and whisper in my ear if I'm talking too fast, okay? All right, so COVID, so there you had it, COVID County. So today I'll go over the big picture, go over a CDC study that just came out that talks a bit about schools, but I can give you some information. It reflects really what we're seeing is happening in daycares and childcare as well. We'll go over the vaccine itself, how the county and the state decide who gets it and when, and how they make these decisions and why they're making these decisions. Oh, look at there, 2 COVID vaccines. We'll talk about logistics and demand, reliable resources for information. And my goal and my hope would be, by the end of this, you feel empowered and as if you have enough information that you could be good information and good resources for information for people that in your community and your family, your neighbors, your mom, your dad, the believers and the disbelievers. So this is our big picture here. I'll take you to our dashboard, but if you've not been to our cchealth.org dashboard, go ahead and go there. And this metrics, this is updated every week. And you see up there where it says state metrics, and you see what it says here in Contra Costa County, and these 44 new COVID cases per 100,000, the adjusted case rate, and this positivity rate. These numbers are what helps the state and the county decide, are we good? Do we have too much going on, too much COVID? We're doing better, we're doing worse. And they use that to make a calculation for whether or not we're in the purple tier, if we need to shelter and stay at home, if we can have restaurants and hair salons open. So these are the numbers when people are making decisions, they make decisions using. So this is our toolkit for making decisions. And the health officers look at this, and we are excited every week, like, okay, what are the numbers going to be? So this is what people use to make big decisions with. I want to give you a sense of what's going on in the world. To date, there's 1.1 million residents of Contra Costa County. And do I get that? I want to go back there. 1.1 million Contra Costa County residents, 41 million in the state, and 286 million in the country, right? That's what the big picture is. of those 1.1 million, we've conducted 1 million COVID tests, but it's been, many people have had, if you've had one, you've had many. Many people who've had none will never have one. So that's the number of tests we've done. Of those 1 million tests, we found 56,000 positive cases. Of those 56,000, 492 souls have died from it. So that's what we look like here. And to date, we have already administered 107,000 COVID vaccines, which is great. Some of those are first dose and some of those are people that have had 2 doses already. That's what it looks like in the county. In the state, you can see we've given about 200, almost 3 million, administered almost 3 million doses. And worldwide, which is really exciting for me, for those people that are like, I don't want to be in the first round getting vaccinated, we've administered 82,480,000 vaccines in the world. Some countries, I look at this, the world data. If you go here to this world, our world data, Israel is almost up at 50% of their population vaccinated. So that might be the safest place in the world. Saudi Arabia, the United States, we're all doing better, but we're down in the low digits, and hopefully we'll get supply and be able to vaccinate more. So that's our world. This visual, I want you to all to stay with this. If you don't go to all the other numbers, COVID vaccinations, you see we're stair-stepping up, 107,000 COVID vaccines as of yesterday, today, right? This is on our dashboard today. And the cases going down. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we had the county surge, and that was what prompted the state, not just because of the county, but the whole state. Our cases went up, and so we had the stay-at-home order. And so that, what you're seeing there is the stair steps up, and you can see it coming down now. And that's why the stay-at-home order by the state was lifted, and there's less restrictions on it because we see the trend going down. So I love this. Going up the vaccinations, going down the number of new cases per day, right? The cases, the number of COVID cases will go up always. Every new case, that's going to be 56, 57, 58, but we'll stair step down the number of cases per day, and that's what we look at. Okay, so here, data, we don't have a lot of the data that's isolated to daycares, but I'll tell you right now, there's 26 in Contra, Costa County, daycares, childcares, and schools that have students on site. There's 26 with cases on site. We have no outbreaks. None of those have outbreaks, which is cases that look like they have been passed from student to student, teacher to student in these facilities. And so that's really reassuring information. And the CDC study that came out on Monday that was published, and it's on the website, if you can link right there, shows that it appears that schools, which includes, we think it includes daycares, and certainly our data right now shows that it to be true, that those populations, the rate of spread and cases in schools is much lower than it is in the community that surrounds it. And we think that's because of the great protocols, the professionals that are running these daycares. You bring the kids in, you make sure everybody's masked, are you sick, go home, doing a great job. And so we see and think that these are really safe places for kids and adults to be. And so we're really encouraged by that information. Vaccines. So that was the data. This is what we're looking at, how we make decisions, how it looks like we're doing right now in the county and the state and where we're going. So now about the vaccine itself. The science vaccines are the scientific advancement that has saved more lives than any other scientific advancement in the history of the world, right? Smallpox, polio, measles. Vaccines stop people from getting sick and from dying, the most vulnerable especially, like infants. Children will die from the measles, they'll die from whooping cough. Vaccines are safe and reliable and save lives. The COVID vaccine is absolutely no different. There's no reason to be suspicious of the COVID vaccine. The ones that are out right now that have the vehicle, what we call the vehicle to carry in that spike protein, that's an mRNA. It's not new technology. It's been out there. It's been used for other treatments and biologic therapies. It's known for more than 10 years. And so it's been studied and known. All it is a different vehicle for attaching that spike protein on. And that's what's carrying in this COVID deactivated COVID virus. The vaccines do not carry live virus. They will not make you get COVID. You're not going to test out and have COVID in your nasal airways. If you have the vaccine, you might feel a little achy because your body's reacting and making its own antibodies, but you will not get sick from it. And there was a question, and we hear this all the time, mRNA sounds a lot like DNA, and are you going to come in and is it going to change somehow my DNA or how my body works? Absolutely not. It's just a vehicle. I think of it like Mission Impossible, where you get that message, where they get the message and say, this is your mission. And then once they tell you what your mission is, tell you what to do, it dissolves and goes away. That's very much the same as the mRNA. It delivers the cargo, which is the spike protein, so your body recognizes it, and it dissolves and goes away and does no changes to your body or your DNA. And I think, when people are wonder and worry, we know now that tens of millions have been vaccinated, tens of millions have been vaccinated. Most likely every one of us, if our child was sick or not sick when they were infants, we said, yes, give vaccines. The due diligence for studying these vaccines was done the same for this COVID vaccine. What is different is that they were able to mobilize quicker because they thought outside of the box and let's use what technology, like they look through their kitchen drawers. What do we have here that we know works? How do we attach this spike protein? And then companies were motivated, they were not penalized because they said, governments, warp speed. They said, we will invest and we will pay for doses, just do your testing, not do it and be successful. And even if you fail, we'll still provide you that money. So people were not given more money to be successful or fail. They're saying, you know what, we're gonna invest in you even if you fail. And so some of the vaccines already that were tested, they said, you know what, it's not working, and that's fine, right? They're not working, they're not gonna come to market, they're not gonna be used. Only the ones that were successful can prove that they had safety profiles that were done are being used. And that's really exciting, and that's the way it should be. Who should get vaccinated? The question is, everybody should get vaccinated. We want everybody, vaccine is safe for everybody. We know that we want to get what you've heard of herd immunity or community immunity. We want 8 to 9 people out of 10 vaccinated. The idea is that the more people that are vaccinated in the community, if the COVID virus is out there, I've already been vaccinated, I'll tell you. And so let's say somebody coughs, if I get the vaccine and it comes to me, I'm going to catch and kill it because it's not going to be able to go anywhere. And we don't think I'll be able to spread it, but I'm still going to wear my mask until we can prove that I'm not going to be able to spread it. So still I'm going to, even though I'm vaccinated, I'm going to still wear my mask. But if I get it, I'm not going to get, most likely not going to get sick, and I'm definitely not going to die if I get coughed on, get COVID, have somebody around me, because the vaccine, we know in the clinical trials, nobody that was completely tested or vaccinated in the trials has died from COVID-19. Doesn't mean that won't happen, but the clinical trials, and so far, it's been very successful, and it prevents significant illness. Maybe you'll get it. There's that 5 to 6% that might get it, but they're not going to get very sick, not going to need hospitalization, we hope, and we, so far, not going to die from COVID-19. I think I got everything in that. You're going to need 2 doses. They're going to be 3 to 4 weeks apart. It's okay if you get the doses up to 6 weeks apart. And we're not sure if you're going to need booster shots for this. And that's to be determined with the variants that we've seen out there. We think that just like the flu every year, they change the flu vaccine a little bit because the flu wants to survive. COVID vaccine, or the COVID virus, wants to survive. So they mutate a little bit and get a little hardier. They change a little bit so that they can survive. So far, we think that the vaccines are effective on these new variants. There's one in South Africa that might be a little hardier, but still the vaccine works on that one. You want to get, because there's all the other variants that are out there, the most common, it absolutely works for those. It absolutely works on this new variant, but its efficacy is about that you see for the flu vaccine. So 70, 75%. That's still mostly effective, going to prevent it, most likely going to prevent you from getting very ill if you do get it. The day of the vaccine with the Pfizer and the Moderna right now, expect that they're going to watch you for 15 minutes because there has been Nope, I didn't change this one either. There's going to be some people who have a history of allergic reactions that might have side effects. So we always want to eyeball and make sure everybody's okay. There has not been significant allergic reactions to this there, and so we're doing good so far. They'll watch it for 15 minutes. The day of the vaccine, you might have a little pain at the injection site. We've heard of people getting flushing, maybe fatigue, headache, chills, but all of those side effects, which are expected, usually go within 3 days. I'd encourage everybody, if they do get vaccinated, when they do, fill out the CD Vax. The CDC has this app that they want you to track, and they'll say, how'd you do today? And so you track, and let them know. Had a fever, had pain on my arm, whatever it is. And they're gathering data so they can tell us how people are doing with these vaccines. So if you can be part of the information gathering about how you felt with the vaccine, the more information we'll have for other people that are learning about the vaccine. Side effects are not a sign that you have COVID-19. It's only a sign that you're making antibodies to fight off COVID-19. It's a good thing if you have side effects. The other thing that I want to remind you, they've talked about do not take Tylenol, ibuprofen. It used to be where people would pre-medicate and say, oh, I'm going to give a little Tylenol or ibuprofen to myself or to my child before we get the vaccine. Don't do that, right? That might blunt and suppress a little bit how your body responds and the antibody effect. So don't do that before. Wait, if you have symptoms or side effects and your arm is really sore and you can't go to sleep, well, then you can. But if you don't need it, certainly don't take it before you go in to get the vaccine, and only take it if you need it afterwards. How we decide who, how, and what we do in getting the vaccine out to people. There is, for the county right now, the state, the federal government gives the vaccine doses to the state. The state then says, okay, counties, this is the number of residents you have. Right now, we're in the tier where it's 75 and older. This is the number of 75 and older that you have. This is the number of essential workers. So it gives us a certain amount of vaccine to use for our priority groups. And it's not, they don't give you 100% because we don't have 100% to give to everybody. They give you a certain, I think it's about 60 or 70% if they can, but they want to make sure they can spread it out so everybody gets the same amount proportionally to the population that needs it in their county. So they do this. And from that, then the counties, using their guidelines, then says, okay, we're going to distribute these vaccines to our partners and ask our partners to give it to the people that fall into the priority groups. Sometimes people fall out of what we consider the priority group, but that's done, and each county has the discretion to do it appropriately if it's appropriate. And I'll let you know that there was a time early on, and still that detention had an outbreak, and we were really worried. We were during a surge, and we were worried that this population could get very ill from this, and they could fill up our hospitals. We had very low ICU capacity. We had our police officers and the people in detention and the inmates and the hospital or the healthcare staff, everybody was in there taking care of them. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't have a big outbreak in there. And so some of our allotment that time was used for the people in detention. We were the county, or the state has a checks and balances, and they said, they had to ask us and we had to verify, now this is why we did it and this is why it was important. And if we did something willy-nilly and it didn't seem appropriate, they may have said, listen, you're going to have to justify or validate everything you do if you're not doing it correctly. But they said, no, this is fair, and continue making allocation at your discretion because this was, in our judgment, appropriate as well. The partnerships that we have to get the vaccine out to people, Lifelong, La Clinica, John Muir Health, CCHP, they're helping us the county allocation to get the vaccine out to a certain number of people that are in the priority groups. Kaiser, Sutter, and the VA all get their own allocations, and they get their own allocations because they have members that fall in multiple counties. And so if there's somebody that's in that multiple counties, they're getting their own and they're not using what is the county supply. The state has also opened up one site in Contra Costa County. They're also working from our allocation. And just to be real about this, we're only receiving about 15,000 doses a week. Mind you, there's 1.1 million residents. We know we have 77,000 people over the age of 75. As of the beginning of the week, we'd only been able to vaccinate 11,000 of the 77,000 75 and older. We also, though, on top of that, vaccinated the people that were in nursing homes, because we know that people 65 years and older are the most vulnerable. In Contra Costa County, we had more than 80% of the more than 500 people that have died were over the age of 60. And so we know they're our most vulnerable. And so that's what our supply was used for as well. Another factor in the allocation is, can we do it safely and get the vaccines out? And so supply chain is a limiting factor as well. The infrastructure, the partnerships, the deep freezers, the ice chests that transport the vaccine, all of these things are factored into who gets it and how and can they do it. So we can't just give it to every doctor's office because they might not have the freezer. We might not be able to be certain that they're able to follow, and we can do the checks and balances on making sure they're giving it to the right people for the right reasons at the right time. Currently, we're giving 5,800 vaccines per day, administered doses. And so that's first and second doses. So I've already had 2 doses. And so some of the doses, and we're on a lag here, some of the doses, it's not 5,800 new people, but first and second timers that are getting it. Our goal, and we think we can have it with the infrastructure that we have in place, is to get up to 9,000. But again, our limiting factor right now is the supply that we have and that we're getting. And so it's supply, 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 and then making sure that we're getting it to the most vulnerable first, because they're the ones that are going to go to the hospital. Those are the ones that are going to die if they get it. So you always take care of your most vulnerable first. Phases and tiers. And so again, the state has put out their guidance, and they said phase 1 and phase 1A, phase 1B. And this is who we're vaccinating right now. And this is from the county website, and it tells you December to January, we're going to be working on phase 1A, phase 1B. But our county, you see here the little shading, our phase 1B has just up to 75. And the reason we're just shaded there is we haven't made 11,000 over 77,000 isn't enough for us to say, okay, we've taken care of this group. We're sure that they're protected and safe. We're ready to move on to the 65 and under. For a moment, there was a window of time where we thought we could bring in the 65 and older. So some people 65 and older did get appointments. If they got appointments, if they have appointments that have already been made, those will be honored. But our county said, wait a minute, we haven't satisfied. We're not sure we've taken care of all of these. We need to make sure we get these all taken care of first. And I used the example just a little bit ago. It's the same as saying airplanes, right? Airplanes, if you're in group 1, you board. Group 2, you board. Group 3, you board. Well, we haven't boarded and taken care of all group 1 yet, group 1A, and this part of 1B. So all 1A is not taken care of, so we need to make sure we did that. Healthcare workers, of those who want it, we think that we've vaccinated all of them. Not everybody wanted it. There was some vaccine hesitancy, and so we still want to capture them because we think we need our workforce to be safe and stable, to be able to take care of the patients that might get COVID vaccine. We need our hospitals and healthcare centers to stay open. So we can talk about this after, and I want to see if I've got this next slide. The allocations here. So right here, we're still on this December, January, getting through these. 1B, it says starting in January, and we still have listed here 75 and older. We didn't add yet the essential workers, and schools and childcares are part of this essential worker that was put out by the state, but we're, again, Contra Costa County doesn't think that they're ready and has done enough for this first 1B tier 1, 75 and older, to be able to drop it down to 65 and older and add in the essential workers. We want to, but we want to make sure that we're doing right by all of the most vulnerable and the people that would die, that if they got it. So again, there's this vision for ethical and equitable allocations. The goal, and we think we can get there as long as there's the supply, is 1 million doses given by July 4th. This is what Contra Costa County with the Board of Supervisors, we think if we get the doses, we absolutely have the infrastructure to deliver 1 million doses. So at minimum, that would be 500,000 of our residents. But if we get these new AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, we think is going to be the next one that's going to be available and go to the FDA for approval. That's going to be a single dose. And we think that hopefully, and I say soonish, we think that that one will be out. And if we get 1 million doses in, that could be more, that could be close to 60% of our population, which would be great by July 4th. A lot of people are anticipating, as Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson start pushing out more doses, that, you know, by the end of summer, we should have a lot of people vaccinated, a lot of the people that want to get vaccinated. And so we're excited about that. And here, as I'm a Debbie Downer saying, listen, we know your healthcare, school, other essential workers are on deck to get their vaccine, but I want to manage and give realistic expectations of what we can do and why we're doing what we're doing at the speed and pace that we're doing it. Here is, and so this is our website. This is a page about vaccinations, and I want, if you're not up on deck, I want you to feel as empowered as you can about how to get good information, to know when it's you or it's your mother or your neighbor or a dear one that's time. So this is if you go to this web page, and this is a live link, you can click on the CC Health vaccine, and there's information here. I put this for schools and childcare as well. Information, any updates about schools and childcare. I'm going to click on here, see if this takes us to the page. And I always have a little trouble toggling back and forth, but hopefully. So this is real-time information about vaccine appointments, distribution phases. You can click on here. This tells us this information that I told you. We're still there colored so that we're not in schools and frontline essential workers, which includes you. Absolutely, the people here. And so as soon as this phase is in, you'll be able to start clicking and going. We want you to go to your health home first to be able to get vaccinated. We want, if you're John Muir Health, they're getting allocations for you, Kaiser, Sutter, and if you don't have health insurance, absolutely come to our website and we will try to get you connected. Click here so you can toggle around vaccine, schedule an appointment, Contra Costa. Let's see if this will click here to request an appointment. You go there, and this takes you to a launching page. That's a vaccine appointment request form. This is for the county, and this is for anybody. You don't have to pay for it, but you do have to meet the criteria that will be listed on here. Right now, frontline workers are not, and childcare and school teachers are not yet listed on here. When it's listed on here, when those groups come in, you'll be able to mark and click, yep, that's me, and you will be put into a queue. And we're not making promises either about it, because we're getting, in some days we can get 10,000 requests for vaccines because people are putting it into their health home Sutter. They're seeing something somewhere else. They're putting it here. So lots of people putting in requests, lots of places. And so we're doing the best we can to sort through and prioritize and give it to the 93-year-old first, and make sure that they get it. Everybody's important, but they're good human beings trying to make good decisions for the people that they're serving. Okay, let me see if I can go back to our page. Oh, good, I did go back here. And I want to make sure that I get back to the presentation. Let's see if it's going to take me to the next page. It did. All right, so here, La Clinica. So if any of you, I want people to be familiar, and one of the things that you can do to stay informed, if you're La Clinica, if you're Lifelong, if you're Contra Costa Health Services, make sure that your email address is up to date and that your cell phone or text message or the telephone that you get messages on is up to date, because they might call you. So, and this is one of those things where you don't want to screen your calls. You do want to check your emails, because they're doing outreach to people that are in the population, 75 and older. When it gets to be 65 and older, they'll only be able to do it by age. They won't be able to do it by what your work is. And so they might click on here and have something on here and say, if you're a healthcare worker, or if you're a child care or school teacher, go ahead and send us a vaccination request. So be familiar with your health insurance web page and be able to make sure that they are able to reach you, and click on there to see if they've got any new updates for you about getting a vaccine, if that's your health home. Do the same if you're John Muir, do the same if you're Sutter, Kaiser. They've got information. Like here, Kaiser is saying we have limited vaccine supply, but they do give you information, healthcare workers, long-term care facilities, emergency medical services. When it gets to be, here it says, are you 65 or older? You may have heard you were eligible, but then they're managing expectations. Once we have vaccine supply for you, they will get it out there. And we hope as we start flooding it, as more vaccines come to us, as soon as Contra Costa County is getting more than 15,000 doses a week, we will try to get it out there as much. Nobody's hoarding, keeping, diverting it to anybody that's not in a priority group. There was word that somebody may have done, again, sketchy. Nobody wants to waste doses, but we want to make sure everybody's doing it the right way. So there's a lot of checks and balances and accountability. And these are our partners. So Contra Costa Health Services, if you've gone on to Contra Costa Health Services site or know of somebody that did, we are sending people to Safeway, to Rite Aid, to CVS pharmacies, going into some of the nursing homes, Walgreens. CAL FIRE is going out and helping us. They're setting up these pods. So these are point of care distribution of vaccines. So they're working with us to try to get it out there. So these are some of the partners. So if you have done an application, you are in one of the priority groups, you might get an email and a link saying, hey, we've sent this to Safeway, and make an appointment with them. And we're going to try to make more partnerships like that because we want access to be easier. And we know that all of that cannot happen all in a few MaxVac sites and health homes. So we're trying to get it out. We're building more partnerships, and hopefully sooner rather than later. But certainly I think by summertime, the people that want to be vaccinated will have opportunities and know when it's their turn. But for now, we're going to have to ask for patience about when it's your turn and how to get your vaccine. And saying all of that, vaccines are really important, but masking right now, distancing, staying home when you're sick, washing your hands, this is our way of life. And this is going to be our way of life certainly all the way through 2021. Expect that, and if it turns out that it's not, be pleasantly surprised. But I think nobody can forget that you still need to do all of the right things to help prevent getting and giving COVID to somebody unsuspecting. And the example I give for that, so I've had a vaccine, but I still wear a mask when I go out, when I see other people, because I don't know and we don't know enough yet, it's possible that we might still be able to carry the virus, even though I won't get sick. Maybe for a day or two, if I've been exposed to somebody, my nose or my airways might be a reservoir still for it to be able to stay in there. It might still be trying to get me sick. It doesn't. I might cough or sneeze and blow out a couple of those little spike proteins to somebody else. So that's why I'm going to wear a mask. And I say it's like we wear a seatbelt in a car, but we still need to drive the speed limit. So it's not just one size fits all for protecting others, protecting ourselves. We need to do both. Wear a seatbelt and drive the speed limit. Get a vaccine and wear your mask until we know the coast is clear. But always wear a seatbelt and drive the speed limit. I use this one other example of why this is important. When I was 13, one of our friends, it used to be when kids always babysat for other people. Some of the kids my sister needed to babysit for, they had chickenpox. And my sister had already had chickenpox and we weren't worried about it. And so my sister went and babysat him. About a week later, I got chickenpox. And so even though my sister didn't get sick, she was able to bring it home and I did get sick. And we think that might still be the same thing until we know more. We still think it's possible to carry the virus, even though you don't get sick, don't know you have it. So wash your hands, wear your mask, get vaccinated. And if you feel sick, even if you've had COVID-19, but if you think you might be sick and have COVID, go ahead and still get tested. It's good information because it's 95%. It's not, nothing's 100%. So it's still possible. So still get yourself tested if you think you've had a vaccine. And for right now, the testing, and this is for schools and for nursing homes, until we know a little bit more, until the rates have gone down significantly, probably the people that have to have regular testing as screening are going to still need to do that until we get a little more information. And finally, talked about our partners. For good information, I would love for you to be able to go on our website and friend us Friend us on Facebook, Instagram, follow us, because we push out lots of good information, and we post, there's information if we've done webinars, videos, we post it here. And so this is good, good information, and you can share it with friends. If they've got it and say, oh, this is good, there's been scams out there, share this information. We think this is reliable information to share with others. So that's it. I took longer than I meant to, but I hope I covered everything that you need to know. So there you go.
Well, thank you. Wow, it's a lot to take in. I have 2 pages of notes for myself. Yeah, thank you. And the chat room has been alive here. I've been following it, so I've added a few questions as well. So if I can, do you have any thoughts on the difference, first of all, between the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines? I know I personally took the one that came up. I didn't ask. I just was glad to get vaccinated. So
yes, I would say it's like Coke and Pepsi. They're
okay.
they're the same. You take the vaccine that you've got. They've been tested. They're reliable. One is not better than the other. They're equal.
Okay. And do you know anything about the AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson coming up, by the way, as we're...
Yeah, so we think that Johnson & Johnson might come up first. It is a single dose. We think it's going to be single dose. We think that we know that they're the vehicle, right? We talked about the mRNA. The vehicle that this one comes in is going to be more like a cold virus, a chimpanzee cold virus. That's what it will come in on, and the spike protein will be attached to it. You might have some like body aches, and again, feel like you're getting a little sick with it, but it won't make you sick. Again, we think that they think it might be close to 90%, very good coverage. It's got good reliability, and it's based on age-old, good scientific data, been tested.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Thank you.
And take the vaccine, take the appointment you can get. No vaccines are going to be approved if it's not safe. And we wouldn't give it to our mother, our firstborn, our dearly beloved.
So I'm going to other questions here. Do you have any thoughts on the availability of a second dose? There's been some concern that with the shortages, people who've already had the first dose won't be able to get the second one.
Don't worry about that. Get your first dose, and it's okay. So we know with vaccines that more time between the first vaccine and the second vaccine. The first vaccine is already going to give you coverage. The second dose will just get you all the way up, boost you up to that 95%. But go ahead, and they will give you information about how to schedule, or they will schedule you for your second vaccine. But go ahead and get the first vaccine. Ask them, how am I going to get know about my appointment for my second vaccine? But don't worry about that. We think you get close to 85% coverage with the first vaccine. The second vaccine just gets you more. And don't worry. Don't get it in your head that, oh my gosh, it's this initial immunity is going to drop off because I haven't gotten it. You're just going to get more. You're not going to get less as time goes on.
Okay, great. Yeah, when I got the first dose that same day at that same pharmacy right on Contra Costa Boulevard, they gave me the second appointment.
Yeah.
So I'm scheduled, and my husband went to the old Los Medanos Hospital in Pittsburgh. That's the place he was assigned. And he also got an appointment that same day for the second dose. So that part seems to be working well, I think.
Right, not with all, everybody's a little bit different. So if you go to a stateside Optum, everybody's going to look a little bit different. So just make sure that you're informed when you walk out about how do they do it. Do I call? Do you make me an appointment? When can I expect it? Just inform yourself before you leave.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. So we've talked about side effects. We've talked about locations and availability for the ECE folks, which looks like most of them are going to have to wait a little bit longer. Do you know if when the vaccinations become available to the childcare workforce, The 1B second half. Do you know if those folks who have family members, because they're in childcare, home childcare, will family members also be able to get vaccinated? If they're not on the license, will anybody ask or?
So there's a bit of an honor system. You might be asked to validate, but if you're providing child care, and again, I think I want to reinforce here, they're really safe places. Like the little kids aren't giving it. They have these little respiratory tracts and they're not spreading it as much to the adults. So it's the same as for the adult in-home healthcare and family members taking care of elderly. We ask people to be honorable when they make these requests and recognize that if you're making these requests and it's not your turn, that you're stepping in front of the 90-year-old. And so you're cutting in line. So we're asking, there's a bit of an honor system here. You might be asked to validate if you've got a name tag or if you've got a card or something when you go in, just in case they ask you. If you work in childcare, you say, here, you work in childcare, some little bit of proof, right? But they might not ask you. So okay. Everybody's going to do a little bit different, but there is a bit of an, honor system here.
Okay. Good. So 2 questions came up. One, if someone's allergic to certain medications, can they still get the vaccine?
Great question. Yes, absolutely. And so you'll be monitored. Every vaccination site, they have the EpiPen, they have something there just in case. If you're a person that has severe allergies and have an EpiPen, make sure you take it in with you, but absolutely. If you get it, and that's why we monitor you for 15 minutes.
Okay, and how about a nursing mom?
Absolutely. Nursing moms, pregnant moms, we want you vaccinated.
Okay, great. Great. So I know that when I got the appointment, I filled out a form with the county. Courtney's asking about what kind of documentation will I need for my ECE teachers. So first of all, the county form, your driver's license is what I had to show. And I showed my Kaiser card because I am a Kaiser member and the pharmacy wanted to know that. But ECE teachers, if they have some kind of verification that they are working, that's probably enough.
Yeah, that's great. If you've got a name tag or something like that, take it with you. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, Courtney, hopefully you and Miley have had your questions answered. So what do we know about kids? I've heard down to age 16, they're looking, but middle schoolers, elementary, are they?
So they're in clinical trials now, testing on under age 16, and they'll let us know. Again, that's a low vulnerability, right? Low risk for getting very sick, low risk for dying. We think those little smaller respiratory tracts are less likely to spread it because they can't propel it as far. They're wearing masks as well. We still want them to wear masks, but they're currently in clinical trials. So we imagine that we'll get to that point where we'll be vaccinating under 16. But it's not been validated yet.
So do you know about cases in the children's population? One of your first slides had some information about the Wisconsin study with children in school, K to 12, but what do we know about Contra Costa?
So under age 11, so nationwide, only about 3% of the cases are in 0 to 17. I think I'm saying that correctly. I might be lying, but 3.7. I was looking at that. I think nationwide, very low percentage of COVID cases are age 3 to 17. And that's either because it's 2 things. They've not been tested or they've not gotten very sick and needed to be tested. So either way, it's reassuring information.
Okay. So specifically for Contra Costa.
So again, I can get that information. I don't have that in my head. And let's see, let me see if I can go back. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go back to our webpage. And this is, yeah, if you get good at this website, I'm going to click on here. I'm going to go to our dashboards and see if we can get ourselves, go to the home page. and we're going to go to dashboard and see if it gives us this age breakdown. Shows us new cases. So it takes a little bit to scroll here. We're going to go down. New cases by day. I love those stair steps. Cases by gender, cases by age group right here. So 5 to 12. So we've had 3,280. So that's 3,280 plus 3,000. So about 8,000 of our cases, just under 8,000 for Contra Costa County, under 18 years. But you see here, the biggest group is the 19 to 30, 31 to 40, and here. So even though it's not a huge number over 61, a high mortality rate, lots of people die. So this is, with these really good questions, poke around this website. This can tell you a lot of information. Is that good enough for you there, Joan?
Yeah, so I'm just hearing now, 8,000 cases of children under 18 years of age
have had it since the beginning, in the last year, have been tested. And have tested positive.
And have tested positive. That's a whole lot more than I expected.
Is it?
Yeah.
39 and 32, 7,500. I think that's, yeah. So, but that's it. And so not getting, right, getting tested, not being hospitalized, not getting very ill. But that's it.
And do we know how many of those have been hospitalized?
I don't, right? I'd be making something up if I told you. What I understand, very few are hospitalized. I think very few of these have been, and I could probably say this with almost great authority, very few have been transmissions outside of the home. So most of these transmissions happen in home. 67 to 75% of the cases that are transmissions occur at home. So parent to child.
Parent to child, not within child care or school.
Correct.
Environments. Okay,
Correct.
well, that at least is good to know. And
hey, Joan, don't get people worried.
Yeah, no, it shocked me. I wasn't aware. Yeah. Okay, but it is good to know that children who have tested positive have most probably gotten it from a parent or relative at
absolutely,
home, rather than in child care. Okay, so a question that came up is, yeah.
So I want to make the point too. There's been there's been only a handful, and I think less than 10 outbreaks in a school or a child care setting. And an outbreak is 3 or more cases in a child care setting. Very few, rare, for there to be transmission at a child care or a school.
Good. Okay. Somebody just wrote and told me not to worry.
Oh.
that the child care people out there are worried enough. So, but from what I've seen, they're all doing a great job.
Yeah, they're doing a great job.
Part of this
schools and child cares are really doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
a phenomenal job all the way through. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned it's a good idea to double mask. And we've been hearing on the news to wear 2 masks or to reinforce your mask. Can you take a minute and talk about that?
So because of these new variants out there, N95 is the best. And when you say N95, that's 95% protection, filtration from what's out there. And because we've got this newer variants that have come out and they say they think they might be a little more infectious, a double mask gets you closer. Each layer gets you about 25% closer to that night of filtration and coverage. So 1 layer, 25, 2 layers, maybe closer to 50, 3 layers is 75, and you're not going to get up to 100 because there won't be the seal. But that's why we think that double masking or a single mask with multiple layers, because each layer is a filter.
Okay, and if you're socially distanced and you're away from people or outside?
Distancing is the best. Staying home and staying away from people really keeps you safe. But if you invite somebody into your home, you still want to wear a mask when they're at your house. You want to do that. Keep the doors open, but distancing, stay 6 feet apart, wash your hands, and still wear your mask. When I go visit my mom, I wear a mask and I sit in the chair across the room. And I've been vaccinated. And she, yeah.
Okay, good to know. I've heard from staff that children outside don't need to wear masks.
Everybody, everywhere should wear a mask, period. That's what we think is the best idea, because you don't know when you're going to get close to other people. You're playing outside, you're running around doing all of those things. Do we think there might be less of a risk? Certainly, because you're outside and you're running around, they've got these little lungs and everything. But no, we make everybody wear their shoes, wear their pants, wear their shirts. It's part of our dress code now. Wear your mask.
Okay, inside and out.
Yeah.
All right. So another question that came up is, with vaccinations now rolling out and more testing, many centers are asking their teachers to get tested fairly regularly. Is that something that you feel should continue, or are they taking up spaces that aren't really needed if they don't think they've come in contact with COVID?
So we think that spot checking for essential workers at least once a month is still a good idea until we have broader broader
Daisy,
testing.
come here.
So yes, we think that it's a good idea still. So essential workers once a month, even if you've been even if you've been vaccinated, we're still saying yes for right now. So once a month, do it. And that's spot checks, right? For those people that are asymptomatic. And then if people start to get, there's like, oh, I had it and I didn't know. We still think it's a good idea for right now.
Okay, interesting. And are testing spots, appointments available? Is that an issue at all?
It is, because so for the county, it is, you're right, there is more scarcity, but definitely if you're symptomatic, you're going to get a test. And so if you're not symptomatic and you're just doing it, it's okay if you wait a little while to get your appointment to get tested, right?
Okay.
But symptomatic, you would call on the phone then. And so you would call, where do we have get tested? If you need to get a test, go ahead and call. If you are experiencing symptoms, please call. So that go and get on that phone number. Don't wait and just say, listen, I'm having symptoms. I do need a test right now. I can't get into my provider. Because yes, indeed, we are shifting our workforce so that we have vaccinators, shooters.
Right.
And so we've got fewer testers, but still we want people, if they're symptomatic, absolutely to get tested. And you think you have COVID. And we do still think essential, if somebody's going to get tested, it's you, right? It's essential workers, people that are frontline that we want. We want our people providing daycare to be healthy and safe and be able to take care of our children.
Okay. Here's a little shift, but again, another question. And I recently read that if you want to take a cruise around Britain or the British Isles, or Italy, you're going to have to show proof of vaccination. So any thoughts on vaccinations being mandatory?
I doubt it. I think there's not going to be any federal mandate, but certainly cruise lines can require it, employers can require it, but I doubt that there will be any requirement that everybody must be vaccinated. Kids in schools, it's a requirement to go to school. That may someday, like you have to have your whooping cough vaccine. I don't know if they'll add COVID to this. They haven't added flu to this. I know at our work, I work in healthcare and in the hospital and clinic systems. If we don't get our flu vaccine, then we have to wear a mask. So I don't know if that might become something, but that's all to be determined. But I've not heard anybody saying that it's going to be required or mandated. That's
okay. All right. That's my list of questions, and we are at 1:30.
wow.
Yeah. I was pushing. So if others of you out there have questions, have information that you're confused about or want another explanation on, please type it into the chat room now. I'm following it. I've picked up a few messages and am happy to continue to read and ask Heather, as long as she has time,
I do.
what comes up. Margaret, I'm seeing thank yous. Thank you to Heather. Thank you to everyone.
And let me know, because the goal is to make this more clear and make you be empowering and not frustrating. So you can feel free to give feedback after the fact and say, you know, that was worse, or that was better, or we would needed a little more on this and a little less on that. I appreciate and welcome that, because we're going to do more of these presentations and we want it to be valuable for you.
Okay, so 2 new questions have popped up, or 2 additional questions on the multiple layers of masking. 2 layers is fine now. 3 layers is better or best?
3 is better. 4 is better, right? So that's why they're saying the double masking. Double masking, we think, is double masking of 2-ply. So 2-ply. So we'd say probably 4. An N95 or an FN95 with a cloth mask over the top of it, good. And again, it's not have to, but we think because these new variants are out and we think they might be a little stronger, a little more potent, and might be able to get you sicker with a few less droplets, we want to protect you from that.
Okay. Okay. Hope that answers Terry, your question. And then there's a question here, and I think you answered this once, about how long the immunity is expected to last. That we don't really know. Am I correct? And boosters may or may not be required as we watch the next year.
Correct. I don't think I brought that up, but good for you. You kind of had the answers there. We don't know exactly how long. We think that this is going to last. We think that probably because we're seeing the variants, there's going to need to be boosters. We don't know if the booster is going to be every year or every 2 years, how often it's going to be, but it looks like we're getting into going to need boosters. We think the immunity from this is more sustained than if you got the illness. I know of already people that had the first, had COVID in the summer and got COVID again at the beginning of January. So we know that there's not enough immunity if you've had the disease. Definitely COVID plus the vaccine is better. And again, right, be pleasantly surprised if we don't need boosters. Just like masking, if we don't need masking at the end of 2021, be pleasantly surprised, but don't expect it.
Do you have any, I just thought of something else. I have a friend who is considered a long hauler. He's in his 50s. He contracted COVID in July and still has major health issues. How common is this situation? Do you know here?
It is not uncommon, right? So we've heard of that, and that we think that there might be what we call sequelae. There's some residual impact on people that have COVID. Some people fly through and are fine. I tell you, that's the thing about COVID. I don't know if the slide is in here. We don't know who's going to get it, and we think most everybody that's exposed may get it. We just don't know what the disease is going to look like in them. And so it's a bit like Russian roulette. You just don't know what COVID you're going to get and if it's going to impact your lungs. If he's overweight, if he has other health conditions, high blood pressure, all of those things, he could have more of a residual impact. But yes, it is a real thing, this post-COVID, after COVID health issues.
Okay, somebody's asking about being able to mix children and teachers within childcare. Right now, it's an adult, a staff person is allowed to be with 2 cohorts of children, and the size of the cohorts are limited. Do you see that changing? I'm guessing that's more of a licensing question than a health question, but
So that's the cohorting question, right? The stable
Right.
cohorts. Yeah, and I don't think the state has changed their guidance on what they think stable cohorts are. And so I think that's really go to the resources here, as I've got this still open, schools and child cares. And I think this child care, I think the cohorting information is still the same as I'm looking here.
Oh,
Yeah, cohort small children. Yeah. So I think, yeah, so go here. Here's the guidance that we have on that. I don't believe it's changed.
okay. Somebody just wrote, I'm laughing. I'm sorry. Somebody wrote, I wrote back, licensing will probably answer this, and they write back, licensing sends us back to you guys. So
Always, yeah.
that's the circle we're in, and I understand it. I've looked at the licensing websites, I look at the county health websites, and you go from one to the other, and they folks send you back and forth. But again, I think better to be safe, keep the cohort small, keep the staff working with limited numbers of cohorts. And again, so now somebody, how many
This is current here.
So how many cohorts can a child be in?
So this might, so 2:37. So I'll give you 3 more minutes here, but this is a good question. We live in multiple, so at schools, we don't want kids in multiple cohorts, right? We want everybody in what we call a stable cohort. But life is multiple cohorts. Your family's a cohort. They're going to go to band practice somewhere else. It's a cohort. So it's really about those best practices when are in our cohorts. That's all we can control. That's all the teacher can control. So make sure the kids have their masks on. Make sure they've got them on outside. Make sure they wash their hands when they're done. When you're sitting down and eating, make sure people are separate and far enough apart so that they're not laughing and spreading their fomites to other kids when they're eating. Make sure that the teachers are separate. So life is a series of multiple cohorts. So it's what you do inside that cohort that you can control. That's the most important.
Exactly. So I know centers have asked parents to sign a document saying their child's cohort will be the classroom and the school and not participate in any other cohort, including family friends. But again, even there, you can't control what families do when they're away from you. It is a trust issue. You do what you can do in the environment you're in, is what I hear you saying, and I agree with that.
Yeah, control what you can control.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, that's our 3 minutes.
Heather, thank you so much. It really has cleared up a number of myths that are floating around. I feel like the people at Cocoa Kids could put out the word more clearly now about the priorities, about the timing. I really hear you saying that this is going to be going on for a while. We're going to be wearing masks.
Yes.
And we need to keep being careful. Even if we have the vaccine, we could still be spreading something. The best we could hope for is we're not going to die from it. We're not going to be hospitalized from it. So I think that's what I'm hearing you say. We still be careful from